Coming up next on the Conscious Courage podcast.
Really, the dopamine that's released when working out, that feel good, you do what? Increase the weight. So now you like, yeah, I'm getting it in, I'm working it out. Hey. So it's the same thing with someone that's taking in drugs. It's just different. A person can be addicted to working out. Heck, there is body dysmorphia where a person is not, they look in the mirror, they can be the biggest man, biggest woman out here in the area of like muscle, and yet they still see a thin person.
Good morning. Welcome to the Conscious Courage podcast, and sing it with me. Happy Motivational Monday. I am your host, Davone'a. I meet with you all every Monday at 6 a.m. Eastern Standard Time to provide practical steps toward our inner healing journey, or what I've coined internal glow up. Whether you're here as a first-time listener or returning, thank you for tuning in. The team and I are grateful to every subscriber via YouTube and every listener via Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Google Podcasts, as well as Spotify. With a special shout out to all of our IGU babes keeping up with us on social media on all platforms at CC Podcast with DT. Y'all are locked in and we are too hyped to have you here, all right? Now, ensure to listen on through so you can receive those practical steps as well as any announcements that we may have. Let's dive on into today's episode. Good morning. Hey, y'all. Welcome to the Conscious Courage podcast. We are now in the month of September. Can you believe it? Where did this year go? Like 2024. Oh, my goodness. We entered in and now we are almost on the brink of our exit, our transition into 2025. But anyway, let me stay on the course. New month, new topic. So for the month of September, as we're continuing to move on from month to new topic, this is actually something I spoke about, I want to say last year, and I didn't do due diligence, okay? I wasn't a podcast at the time. I was just creating content. So now I want to take my time with the topic. And so for the month of September, we are deep diving into addictions. Episode 22 is about defining addiction and recognizing the signs. Okay, y'all? Y'all ready? So I have this broken down into a couple of parts. Now let's get on into understanding addiction. So the definition of forms of addiction. According to the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, 5th edition, which I've been referencing lately, addiction falls under the category of substance-related and addictive disorders. The DSM-5 classifies addiction as a complex condition characterized by a compulsive need to use substances or engage in behaviors despite the harmful consequences. So the impulse is like, it just happens. Like it's not innate, so can't say that. It's not like that, but it's like the urge, right? You have to do it. It's a compulsive need. It's like an obsessive need. In the DSM-5, substance use disorders are diagnosed based on a pathological patterns of behaviors related to the use of a substance. Listen, y'all. I had my balcony door open and now there are 2 large flies in here. So as I'm trying to read pathological, I said thank you to my mind. Like, come on, mind, let's get it together. I took a nap, so I should be hyped up. The 2 flies come flying by. So now I can't even say it because I'm like, patholo, there's a fly. Patholo, there's another fly right now. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, this is related to the use of a substance. This includes criteria such as an increased tolerance to the substance, withdrawal symptoms, as well as a persistent desire or unsuccessful efforts to cut down or control the use of said substance, and its continued use despite the awareness of the physical or psychological problems caused by or exacerbated by the substance. And what I want, because I don't know if I brought it up in these notes, so I'm gonna make sure I bring it up in like the second episode of this here mini series, and that is
Caffeine. People like to point fingers like, oh, that person is addicted to this, that, or the other, and I could never. Meanwhile, they cannot stop shopping at said coffee locations because their body is now addicted to the caffeine or addicted to whatever that secret sauce ingredient is in said coffee shop, at said fast food restaurant, in said soda. So addiction does not or is not limited to substance use, as in drugs, alcohol, prescription drugs, etc. And so I would definitely unpack that. The DSM-5 also recognizes behavioral addictions such as gambling disorder, where the same criteria of that compulsive behavior, right? Just that urge, you have to do it, and the negative consequences apply. So other potential behavior addictions like internet gaming, all right, that's another one. Hello, y'all gamers out there, social media, okay, just can't stop scrolling. I was coming back from Atlanta because I did attend Invest Fest and it was going up. And the lady in front of me, I was just watching her. And she went from Facebook to like Instagram, would lock her phone, unlock it, go back to Facebook, and then Instagram, go through her text messages, and then back to Facebook, and then And like she did that up until the point we were on takeoff. And guess what? Even while we were in the air and our phones are on airplane mode, Miss Ma'am is still scrolling. And then as soon as we landed and she could have access, guess what she did? She went right back to social media. And I was just watching like, goodness gracious, what is this? Like, what is she getting out of that? But then I also looked at myself because as I have been growing or working to grow the audience in the podcast platform, I spend more time on social media than I ever have. And I catch myself opening up TikTok. Okay. Look at me. The rock calling the kettle black. Is that what it is? Or is it the pot calling the kettle black? And then they say throwing a rock at a glass house. I think I mixed both of them together. I digress. Let's get back into it. So the DSM-5, right, y'all? There's also internet gaming, as I mentioned, or a separation section of conditions that warrant some more research as it pertains to the internet gaming. Y'all, I think there's maybe 3 flies in here, and it's so annoying. But that's what I get for opening the door, just because I wanted to hear outside. All right. So the underlying causes of addiction. Addiction often stems from a combination of factors, y'all. So according to the DSM-5, these include genetic predisposition. So genetically, right? So this increases or can increase the likelihood of a person's vulnerability to developing a substance use disorder. So they're more inclined, or it's prone, y'all. I think there are 3 flies. Okay. You know that song, 3 Blind Mice, baby? I got 3 little flies. 3 little flies. Like, goodness. Environmental factors such as exposure to drugs at an early age, high stress environments, or trauma can also contribute significantly to addictions. Let me share with y'all, I have 2 interviews that I am bringing you, because it's one thing for me to bring you the information. It's another thing to hear from survivors, to hear from those that have triumphed and overcame addiction. So I have one lady coming on. She shares her addiction that she overcame, her food addiction. She also shares the unfortunate story of losing her brother to substance use. And I also have a gentleman coming on who is a survivor of alcohol misuse as well as drug misuse, from cocaine to marijuana to, you just have to tune in for him to hear his story, y'all. Now, the DSM-5 does note that there are some co-occurring mental health disorders such as depression, anxiety, or post-traumatic stress disorder that can also play a significant role in the development and the persistence of addiction, which I will break down those as well. These conditions may drive individuals to use substances or engage in addictive behaviors as a form of self-medication. The DSM-5 also breaks down the cycles of addiction. So this can involve triggers, internally or external cues that lead to said craving, to smoke, to drink, to do whatever else, to eat. to go and sit and game for an extended amount of time, to scroll on social media. The act of engaging in the addictive behavior and the negative consequences that follow, which can include physical health problems, deteriorating relationships, and impaired daily functioning. Those are some of the triggers, the external triggers, and then the tail end of that are the impacts. Now, this is where I got excited because when I first brought up the topic addictions, I was in school and we were going over addictions, and the brain is just, whew, wow. So I'm excited about this section. The brain transformation and addiction. So one of the key psychological aspects of addiction involves the way that the brain transforms itself in response to repeated exposure to addictive substances or behaviors. When a person engages in addictive activities, the brain releases a surge of dopamine, all right? The happy release, the happy natural drug. A neurotransmitter associated, so dopamine is a neurotransmitter associated with pleasure and reward. Over time, the brain begins to associate the high with a factor necessary for survival, much like how it associates food or water. And I just think that's profound because when you like people will look at a person with an addiction and go, just quit, just quit, just quit. But their brain has now registered whatever that substance is as a need. This is necessary for me to survive. Therefore, the body, the brain, the body craves said fill in the blank, and that's why the person continues to go back, and that's why there is some withdrawals and some reactions that your body experience when a person is starting to wane themselves off of whatever that substance is. So the process known as neuroadaptation involves the brain's reward system becoming increasingly sensitive to the addictive substance or behavior. And as a result, the individual experiences intense cravings and feels compelled to seek out the substance or activity, even when they are aware of the negative consequences. Like, okay, if I go and shoot this up, there is a negative consequence. However, the body is like, but you need it so that you can feel that high again. And another takeaway, as the reading for school uncovered, is the reason why a person may start off with marijuana or start off with alcohol and then increase to a stronger substance is because the brain is chasing that initial high, and a person won't receive that in taking the same whatever the substance is as they did before. What happens? They need to increase it in order to potentially get to that point again. So look at it as working out. I'll refer to it as that because I used to be in the gym, okay, lifting the weights, baby. You see these guns? It's like after doing some bench presses or doing some deadlifts or squatting, after a while, that weight is like, this is light. This is nothing but a light thing right now. You over here, you can do on one leg Russian squat if you want to, no hands on the rack because the weight has become so light to you. But in order to feel that tension, that sense of a workout, that high of really the dopamine that's released when working out, that feel good, you do what? Increase the weight. So now you like, yeah, I'm getting it in. I'm working it out. Hey. So it's the same thing with someone that's taking in drugs. It's just different. A person can be addicted to working out. Heck, there is body dysmorphia where a person is not, they look in the mirror. They can be the biggest man, biggest woman out here in the area of like muscle, and yet they still see a thin person. And so then they're just working out intensely, or it could be the opposite. And that's where you have people that are bulimic or have an eating disorder because they look in the mirror and they don't see themselves as small enough. But there's a diagnosis out there called body dysmorphia and an addiction to regurgitating food, or as I've already mentioned, working out, something like that. But that's not in there. So let me focus. Ad break. Are you seeking an electrifying speaker to ignite transformation in your audience? Well, look no further. Hi, I'm Davone'a, real estate investor, Air Force veteran, and host of the Conscious Courage podcast, where new episodes are released every Monday, 6 a.m. Eastern Standard Time via YouTube and all streaming audio platforms. I specialize in delivering impactful keynote speeches that inspire change and elevate your minds. Whether it's a virtual gathering or an in-person event, I bring passion, expertise, and a unique delivery to every arena or every environment that I'm in. Let's captivate your audience together and create an unforgettable experience. Contact me today to book your next event, and let's embark on this journey of transformation, or let's get all of your attendees on this journey toward internal glow up. You can book me via my website by going to www.davoneatashay.com. I'll spell that for you. It is www.DAV as in Victor, ONEATASHAE.com. I look forward to connecting with you. Take care.
So moreover, as the addiction will progress, right, in the brain's prefrontal cortex, so the area responsible for decision-making, impulse control, as well as self-regulation can become impaired. And this impairment makes it even more challenging for an individual to resist the cravings and make rational decisions, further perpetuating the cycle of addiction. Y'all, that's so good. I should say it twice, but I'm really trying to get back down to 30-minute clips so I don't lose the audience or lose y'all who are listening and or watching. Thank y'all so much. Okay. So it's also important to note that addiction can lead to the development of tolerance, where the brain requires more of the substance or behavior to achieve the same high. So I just gave y'all a few examples on what that looks like. This escalation not only deepens the addiction, but also increases the risk of severe physical and mental health issues. Now, we're going to transition into part 3, which is seeking help in overcoming stigma. So resources and some support that is out there. If you or someone you know is struggling with addiction, there are some resources available to help. And this includes hotlines, support groups, therapy, and treatment programs tailored to individuals' needs. Organizations like Alcohol Anonymous, also known as AA, Narcotics Anonymous, also known as NA, and other support networks offer community and accountability for those on the journey to recovery. Now, here is a barrier in really recognizing or addressing addiction, and that is the labels that society has put on addiction as someone being weak or morally flawed, right? They just have an issue, they have a problem. But addiction is a complex and multifaceted condition that requires compassion as well as understanding. So my hope is that by the end of this mini series, the next 5 Mondays, well, 3 Mondays will be me giving you content, and the last 2 Mondays of the month of September are the 2 interviews that I did. But between the information I'm bringing and the interviews, may you have a greater understanding as well as compassion, sympathy, and empathy if you can. Sympathize if you can and empathize with those that are working toward overcoming and triumphing addiction. And if they're not, being there to support them and encouraging them to have a greater understanding of what's going on mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, and then getting them the help that they need. And the more that we discuss the stigmas, then we realize it's a health issue. More than anything else, it's a health issue that simply needs to be treated with the same care and attention as any other medical condition out there. Something to consider is simple, open conversation, open dialogue, and having this conversation without judgment. Like, I speak to people and I now bring in scripture and or something that maybe I have an understanding on something. And so I'll try and bring in my 2 cents, but I don't do it from a place of judgment. First off, I can't judge anybody. Okay. I cannot. I will, as the podcast goes on, you all will learn about me and some of my past behaviors and areas that I've had to overcome, not as it pertains to addiction.
All right, let's not mix the two topics together. But I share that to say I am far from someone that would judge. And if I ever find myself judging, I will go to God and I will repent for it and ask for his forgiveness, because I can't do that. None of us are perfect. I'm definitely not perfect whatsoever. So thou shalt not judge, and I do not. And I bring that up because sometimes you'll have people or someone might perceive like, okay, this girl is bringing this information, or here she go talking about the Lord. She's so judgy. And it's like, I'm not judgy. Okay. All right. So let's get into some of these practical steps, y'all. Here we go. My favorite part, hopefully yours as well. So as we wrap up today's episode, okay, remember that recognizing addiction is the first step towards healing. Y'all about to see these flies. Like, they are dancing around. They are giving me a whole show right now. Like, ma'am, this is what happens when you leave your door open. You must have wanted us in here. So now we in here. And they just doing their thing. All right. I wish I had my German Shepherd. Okay, let me just say this real quick. I had a German Shepherd. His name is Wes. I've since given him to my father. I gave him to my dad maybe like in 2021, because I was moving so much between California and Georgia, and then planting my feet in Georgia before I then moved to South Florida and blah, 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 blah. And he loves chasing flies. So I wish he was here right now to catch these flies, this little trio of flies. Okay. But I guess they're my special guests for this episode. So as I wrap up today's episode, remember that recognizing addiction is only the first step towards healing. Okay. First it's always awareness, and whatever you do, it's always awareness. Whether you're dealing with addiction yourself or supporting someone who is, there is hope and help available. Remember that recovery is a journey, and it begins with awareness, support, and the courage to take that first step. So now we're transitioning into our practical steps. Here's one. Start by reaching out, whether to a trusted friend, a family member, or a professional. If you're unsure where to begin, consider calling a hotline or attending a local support group. You can literally Google hotlines, the Alcohol Anonymous, the Narcotics Anonymous, to put it in your phone. Help recovering from fill in the blank. Educate yourself about the addiction and share that knowledge with others, or either that addiction or addiction overall. The more that we understand, the better equipped we are to combat the stigma and support those in need. And lastly, practice self-care. So whether you're in a recovery or supporting someone who is, taking care of your mental, emotional, as well as your physical health is crucial. Y'all, I'm trying to give y'all some time back so that you can get caught up on all the episodes. And also, I need to do my due diligence and not getting too carried away and excited so that I can give you the 30-minute clips, or close to 30 minutes, instead of 45 minutes, an hour, 2 hours. You know what I'm saying? When I was getting a little carried away. Thank you for tuning in to today's episode of the Conscious Courage Podcast. But y'all, that's it for this episode. That's it. All right, that is it for today. Remember that healing is a journey, and it's okay to take it one step at a time. Step by step is what I just heard playing in my little brain. All right. In our next episode, I'm going to dive deeper. And what am I going over in the next one? I think it's addictions and like co-occurring mental health disorders. I think. Yeah. If you enjoyed today's discussion and you want to continue this journey together, be sure to subscribe to the podcast, leave a review, like, and share with at least 3 to 5 people. I mean, it's only 4 things that I'm asking, y'all. I'm only asking you to do 4 things. I wanted to freestyle, but I'm not. Until next time, stay courageous, conscious, and keep glowing from within. Remember, it takes courage to be conscious, and courage is the key to conscious living. So I love you all, and I'll see you next week. Disclaimer: as a content creator with a background in psychology and ongoing studies, it's imperative that I note and clarify that I am not a licensed professional. The videos and podcasts I produce are intended for educational, entertainment, and transformational purposes only, while I strive to provide accurate information and insights, it's essential to consult with a licensed mental health clinician or a licensed mental health professional for clinical perspectives and personalized advice tailored to your specific needs. Your mental well-being is of the utmost importance to me, and seeking guidance from a qualified provider is encouraged for any concerns or issues that you may be experiencing.